Course, and he says it's been key to Britain's economic recovery. But Labour say his long-term economic plan has left millions of families behind and that further cuts could take us back to the levels of spending of the 1930s. I'm joined now from Leigh in Lancashire by the Shadow Health Secretary, Andy Burnham, and a very good morning to you, Mr Burnham. So some there of Labour's economic analysis, but the other side of the coin is that you must admit that things are getting better on many fronts as well.
Not here, they're not, Dermot. People that I speak to across the Leigh area are really struggling. It's not just that their wages haven't gone up, it's that they don't have any basic security in their employment. Too many people on 0 hours contracts, too many people just can't get enough hours to bring in enough money, and that's the reality for most people. So I think when they hear politicians like George Osborne, you know, kind of pontificating and saying it's all wonderful, all these jobs, that is not the reality for people in places like this, and that's what causes the disconnect between Westminster and the rest of the country.
Well, is I don't know, you must know, is the unemployment rate above the national average in your constituency?
But they talk about jobs without saying what kind of jobs are these. And what we've seen under this government is a big growth in, for instance, 0 hours contracts. Now, that has become very common across my constituency. And from my point of view, from a health point of view, how can people have good mental health and well-being if they've no basic security in terms of the hours they're going to work from 1 week to the next? So it's not just about the number of jobs, it's also about what kind of jobs those are and whether they bring security to people and to families. And to be honest, we've seen an epidemic, to be honest, of insecurity under this government. They really have failed to see how life is hard for people in areas like this. They aren't doing enough to help people, and that's why so many people want to see the back of this government.
Well, I mean, the original question was, isn't there a glimpse of things getting better? Low interest rates for nearly the entire Parliament. Petrol prices falling, that's more money in people's pockets. OK, growth going up, employment is up as well. You know, the list continues of things that, yes, we hear what you say, but, you know, the list of things that perhaps show things might get better pretty soon, it's quite a long one, isn't it?
Well, of course, we welcome those things. Of course we do. But there was a growing economy when this government came to power. And you'll remember they came in then and made drastic changes and cuts to spending, and the recovery was thrown off course. So I would put it back to you, Dermot, that to be honest, they're only getting back to where things were. And this recession has been longer, harder and deeper than it needed to have been. And the casualty has been working families in areas like this. I mean, I can't put it to you any more plainly than this. They just simply do not recognise the picture that you've just given. They don't have that extra money in their pockets. And also those who haven't been able to find work have been punished by this government. Overuse of sanctions for those seeking work in terms of people on job seekers allowance, or the terrible cruelty of the bedroom tax. This is people who are in a very difficult situation. They've no choice about their circumstances, and yet they've been punished by this government at the same time as they've given a tax cut to millionaires. I mean, these are the wrong priorities, Dermot. Ordinary working people have been hit quite hard by this government, and I think many of them are crying out for a change.
There's a lot around, as ever, about your beat, the NHS, of course. This, first of all, from the Health Select Committee about end-of-life care. And people, if they want to die at home or in a hospice, that really should be made possible.
Oh, yes. No, I agree very strongly with this. I had personal family experience of a situation where a family member died in hospital when she wanted to be at home. And I think this goes to the heart, doesn't it, of what people really want from the health service. Fundamental choice when it really matters, such as at the end of life. So I've been arguing for some time that we need to give people the right to end-of-life care in their own home or in a hospice. And I've also committed the Labour Party to free social care at the end of life. Now, that makes sense. People will say, well, how can that be paid for? Well, it's because it doesn't make sense to have people going in and out of hospital, receiving all these unnecessary treatments at the end of their life. You know, it's often much more financially sensible to care for people where they want to be. And that's why I really welcome this report from the Health Select Committee. Maybe, even though we're in frenzied political times, maybe the other political parties could commit to the same thing too, because, you know, amidst the frenzy of an election campaign, some things matter more to people than the toing and froing of party politics. You know, I put our cards on the table, but I do so in a spirit of, of constructive engagement. I hope the other political parties will match our commitment in this really important area.
Well, this next question flows on from it, about constructive engagement, because you and I have talked for many years now about your plans for integrating social care with other forms of care within the NHS, yet the government comes up with these plans for Manchester to devolve £6 billion worth or so of spending to do just that, and you seem to be opposing it.
Well, it's a bit late in the day, isn't it? They've spent 5 years fragmenting and privatising the health service, and I think people are right to be more than a little suspicious of why George Osborne arrives just a few weeks before the dissolution of Parliament with a so-called plan to integrate. I mean, to be honest with you, I think it needs to be taken with a large pinch of salt, and we already have in place the bill that he and his colleagues put forward earlier in this Parliament with no mandate from the British people, that Health and Social Care Act. Because what that is doing is actively fragmenting the NHS. They're forcing NHS contracts out onto the open market, and that means that lots of more providers are coming in, making integration harder to achieve. My message to George Osborne is this, quite simple. You can't continue to ride both horses. What's it going to be, integration or competition? You can't have it both ways, and that's a question he's going to need to answer.
OK, question that it seems Labour leadership, you're part of that, need to answer is about a post-election deal with the SNP. It's damaging your party in Scotland. That's what a lot of Labour people from there say. Why don't you just rule it out? Would you and Mr Miliband say, we will categorically not do any kind of deal with the Scottish National Party after the general election?
Maybe this is an old-fashioned view, Dermot. I just think it's arrogant for any political party right now to start second-guessing the public and kind of thinking what they're going to decide before they've even voted. I'm a football man, as you may have picked up over the years, Dermot, and I'm in the middle of a match right now and I'm playing to win. And in those circumstances, I don't start saying, oh, what do we do if we draw? We're out there playing to win. The public, I think, wants to see people like me putting my plans on the table. I'm campaigning here for a Labour majority government. I believe that is within our grasp, and the message that should go out from all Labour spokespeople now is to say we go out there and we fight to win, because the people of places like Lee need a Labour government, and they need one pretty urgently because of all the reasons I gave you earlier.
OK, right, I'll stay with the football analogy then. So Ed Miliband's your coach in this football match. It's in the World Cup. You don't manage to win. It goes to a draw. Extra time, still a draw, and you go to penalties. You haven't planned for that at all, so you lose. You get it in the neck.
Well, we're not there yet, are we? We're in the middle of the game.
Yeah,
we're in the heat of the battle.
You plan for the
and
eventualities.
In those circumstances,
teams that don't practice their penalties, they get it in the neck.
Teams don't start talking about drawing, do they, when they're fighting to win an important contest? We are participants in this event that's happening before. It's not a game, is it? It's incredibly serious. We're participants, and people want to see us fighting for victory. That's what I am doing. I don't think it's right for us to be saying, oh, the polls look like the public might say this in a few weeks' time, and therefore we need to start deal making as though it's already happened. I'm not presumptuous that a single vote has been cast in favour of Labour. I'm fighting for every vote right now. And I just would say this as well, Dermot. In recent elections, people can remember seeing the polls running up to them, and they often don't get the result right at all, do they? I mean, people remember 1992 famously, but even last time, I don't think the polls called it right. So I think we should just kind of put those to one side for now. The public want to hear from us what we would do to change the country. And to be honest, I'm not going to be drawn into any more of that speculation and hype about all of that. I'm going to set out Labour's case for the National Health Service, building a national health and care service by bringing in social care. Free social care at the end of life, as has been called for today. I'm committed to that. Getting rid of those 15-minute visits in people's homes that really are worthless. Ending the 0 hours contracts in our social care system. These are the kind of things that Labour is talking about, and these, in the end of the day, are the things that matter to people who are going to vote, much more than any potential deals later down the line.
No, you're right. People also like to know a little bit about the background of people they're voting for. How many kitchens have you got in your main home?
If this election is descending to that level already, then I could hear TV sets being switched off them all over the land as you asked that question. And we really got to do better than this, haven't we? As we go into this election, come on, let's talk about the things that people are worried about. Let's talk about the issues affecting the National Health Service. You know, we had a statistic on Friday that this year the government will miss the A&E target. So in the last year of this 5-year Parliament, the NHS will miss the national A&E target. Massive news and a sure sign of an NHS that has gone downhill on Mr Cameron's watch. Now, those are the things that people are worrying about and talking about today, not about kitchens and all the rest of the nonsense in the newspapers.
All right, Mr Burnham, thank you very much indeed, Shadow Health Secretary there.
Thank you very much.
Now, coming up.